Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've been bringing you guys build breakdown videos. We had our daily driver come-ins versus our show truck come-ins. We had our giveaway truck, which you guys absolutely love both those series and absolutely blew them up with all the likes, comments, and shares. So thank you guys so much for that. And that's the whole reason why we want to keep doing this for you guys. You guys seem to like those cost breakdown videos. So as long as you guys keep doing that, we'll be able to bring those to you guys. Now, I'm Lawson. You guys can find me at Lawson.co on the gram. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing Juniors 1993 Ford Bronco. Now, if you guys want to start your own build, you guys can do so at customoffsets.com. Wheels, tires, suspension, performance, accessories, we got it all for your truck. Let's hop to it. So now, obviously, on the last build breakdown video, it was our 2017 Ford F350 SEMA truck, which is now our giveaway truck. If you guys want to win this truck, all you have to do is go buy some apparel from customoffsets.com/giveaway. Dude, every $5 entered, come on now, that's an entry. And all the apparel's dope. Look at this. Show. There's so much apparel. Come on, hop into it. So now the time before that, we need the iPhone, bro. There's just too much stuff done to these vehicles. I can't memorize everything. We got it on the handy dandy sheet. We're gonna go over the cost of every single thing on this vehicle. So now, obviously starting things out, the Bronco itself, $8,200 for this 1993 Ford Bronco, straight from California. If you guys missed the build series, there's like 5-episode build series where Junior went out there, broke down on the way back, blew his motor, swapped it with an LS motor, slapped big freaking wheels on this thing. If you guys haven't seen the build series, go check it out. So obviously, unlike the other ones, there is so much done underneath the hood on this one, so it's gonna get very technical very quick. So first up, obviously, to get his motor, he ended up having to pick up a 2003 Escalade, and that was $1,000. So if you guys saw that thing in the build series, this thing was freaking totaled, but the motor was fine and he was able to use the motor. So he picked up a junker Escalade for like 45 minutes south of here, brought it back here. They ended up ripping the motor out and putting it in. That was $1,000 for that donor motor for the Bronco. Next up, the transmission, the 4L80E, came out of a Silverado 2500 HD gasser. That ended up being $500. Now, that was another trip where Junior had to go down to, I believe, Chicago to go get this transmission, come back up, and then make everything work on that. Now, next up on that, to make the transmission work, obviously he needed some other supporting components, so he's got an aftermarket transmission pan, which ended up being $120. He also got a transfer case, which was the NP241, which came out on 95 2500 HD GM, and that was $150. He also had a tune, which was $150. Obviously, you guys got to make sure that, you know, your transmission, your motor, everything is running just right with these tunes, especially when you're swapping, you know, different motors out of a different brand, plopping it into your current drivetrain. It's just, things get weird. You gotta make sure you guys get your tune and make sure you guys are good to go. Next up, he ended up getting some power steering lines. Those were $120. He ended up getting a torque converter 3200 stall. That ended up being $699. And then he also had to get a high output alternator as well, which is $140. So you guys are already seeing a lot of supporting mods that had to be purchased. You know, it's not like you just buy the LS, you're good to go. He ended up having to get all these other supporting mods to make this setup work inside this Bronco. And during that build series, I remember Junior had like sheets of papers, receipts everywhere. He was shopping on Amazon and eBay every single day to get parts for this thing. While Banker would be out in the shop working, he'd come out all dirty up to Junior's desk, tell him he needs this part, this part, this part. Brad was coming up because he's like the master at LS swapping stuff. He was telling him all this stuff that he had to buy. And this just got so crazy, so fast, and so expensive. You know, all these $120, $150 here starts to really add up. And that's where you guys are gonna see at the end of this video, this thing is not cheap to build. So now the chrome alternator relocation bracket that he needed, that ended up being $287. I remember when this thing came in, super shiny, looked real nice. I believe Rainey ended up polishing it, so it looked even freaking better once it came time to install the motor and everything. They got everything shined up. They got the motor all painted up in the in the Ford blue on the Chevy motor just to piss off the internet. I thought it was hilarious and it was a nice touch, but to see all these parts come together was super cool because, well, let's just face it, there was a lot of them. Next up was the intake manifold, which came out of a 2006 Trailblazer SS. That ended up being $200. So he ended up needing a drive shaft U-joint, which came out to $25. He also ended up stealing Taylor's headers. He ended up stealing her headers because they weren't ready to build. Banker's old truck stole those freaking headers, man, and this thing sounds absolutely amazing. Those were actually for a 07 to 13 Silverado, and those came out to $370. He also ended up purchasing LS7 Lifters, which came out to $180, and then also purchased the cam, which was a stage 4 truck cam, and that ended up being $460. That's the reason why the chop sounds so good. With the headers, the exhaust, everything sounds so good on this thing, sounds so mean. And honestly, it's a little bit better than the black Bronco. I'm sorry, Junior, had to say it. Next up, we ended up having a cold air intake, which ended up being $57. Then also a 11th gen steering wheel out of an F-150, which I thought was a fantastic touch. That was $100. I've been getting more into like the interior swap stuff, seeing a lot of people swap out a lot of stuff for their interior. I believe right now he's like looking into doing like a full custom like one-off center console build with like swapping seats out of like an 11th gen F-150. He's just completely redoing this whole thing. I think it's super cool once people start doing that. So that's kind of everything that was done under the hood. Now, if we come in here and really look at these wheels and tires, the wheels are gonna be chrome Archon Off-Road Da Vinci's. That's gonna be in the 26x14. Now, before we go any further, keep in mind this was a custom one-off set in the 6x5.5. They do not produce this wheel in a 6x5.5. It was just kind of something a little custom because, well, hey, Archon's like our wheel company. We can just kind of do that. So he ended up having that done. He also has it wrapped in the AMP MTs in a 35 13.5 R26. This setup comes out retail to $5,968. Now he also got some spike lugs, these shiny spikes in here, $180, and he's also got some spacers to really kick it out because honestly I was pretty surprised that his stance with 14 wides on this big toaster right here was not as wide as you would think, especially with 14 wide. So he ended up getting some spacers. Those were $399. And then obviously his 6-inch super lift kit, powder coated in that beautiful blue, came out to $1,003. So pretty cool there. Moving on, we also have powder coat, which was $700. That's what I was talking about, the blue powder coat on the super lift suspension, which ended up being done on his previous Bronco. If you guys haven't seen Bronco build series number 1, it was in that build series, and then we carried it over to Bronco build series number 2 and like did a lot of Bronco stuff on this channel because Junior likes Broncos. So anyways, $700 for that powder coat on the suspension. So now next up, you guys see these beautiful clear headlights, and then he's also got clear taillights in the rear. The headlights and taillights came out to $455. He also has a bumper bracket for $110 up front here because, as you guys can tell, this is not a stock front bumper. This is actually a newer body style F350 bumper, which came off a 2019. And those bumpers actually run $600. So it's a super cool mod. He ended up doing it on his previous Bronco. He now did it on this Bronco. He also just recently did it on his OBS dually. Next up, he also has Morimoto fog lights, which came out to $264, as well as the LED light conversion coming out to $50. So if you guys see the Morimotos down here in the bumper, actually fit into this 2019 bumper really nice. Like they end up lighting up the road, especially with the LED conversion, the headlights, and he also lights up the road at night with his 16-piece Apollo Black Label Lighting rock light kit, which came out to about $600. So that's the new Black Label Lighting Apollo series, and I believe this is the first vehicle that actually ran his brand new series. I know we used this thing for a lot of graphics when we started to promote those new rock lights, and they look absolutely fantastic. We got it on the new giveaway truck, and it's the newest series of Black Label Lighting rock lights that we've been pushing a lot. So if you guys need rock lights, get those Apollos, baby. He's also got the Morimoto 2-stroke 3.0 headlights, which came out to $194. So it really cleaned up the whole front end. And it's the little touches that Junior always pays attention to, especially on these older builds, that really bring everything to life and make it look so clean. Rounding things out, we also have a steering stabilizer. Obviously, you know, rolling down the road, you want to make sure that your steering and everything is you know, up to scuff and is really good, and you don't have to worry about losing control or, you know, maybe even not being able to drive it. I know the last one was kind of miserable to drive. So he really paid attention to, you know, steering components and making sure that everything flowed very nicely. That was actually $100, and now this thing, I mean, I just drove it and it drove absolutely fantastic, even with the massive wheels and tires on this thing. He's also got a custom drive shaft. Obviously, you guys have been hearing a lot about custom drive shafts around here. Well, when you start building things past what they were intended to be built, sometimes you got to modify some stuff. And he did that with the custom drive shaft, which came out to $300. Last but not least, he's got a Magnaflow muffler as well, which came out to $140. I mentioned it earlier in this video that he's got a ton of work done to the motor and to the exhaust. That's why this thing sounds so freaking good. And last but not freaking least, finally, labor. So in the last video, we guys told you that our labor for our shop, if you guys were to come to Offset's Garage and have something built by us, so if you wanted something like this built to your 1993 Bronco, 60 hours of labor at $105 per hour, and that came out to $6,300. To wrap things up, future builds, obviously I mentioned the custom interior with the custom center console, the custom seating. He wants to eventually get it reupholstered. I know there's a couple people around the shop that have been getting some of their stuff reupholstered, and it just turns out so clean. It looks so good. He also wants to do a tower speaker setup, and he actually plans to solid axle swap and go much, much taller. So I'm looking forward to that. I know he's already got the axles, so I think that this thing could be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, sky's the limit once you solid axle swap. So I'm absolutely looking forward to that. So now all said and done, if you guys were to take the retail on all of these parts, take it to a local shop, around that $100 per hour mark for labor at 60 hours. The whole thing comes out to $30,121. So that's what we got for you guys on today's video of this build breakdown, this time being on the 1993 Ford Bronco by the long orange-haired kid, Junior himself. So that gives you guys kind of an idea of what this would take to build something like this if you guys are aspiring to build a showpiece Ford Bronco. If you guys want to start your guys' build, you guys can do so, customoffsets.com. We'll see you guys on the next one.